And we've made it. Time team are finally here. We're cutting the turf behind me in this previously unexplored field here at one of the most important archaeological sites in the world, Sutton Hoo.
This is the site of the world-famous early Anglo-Saxon royal burial ground, where a vast ship burial was unearthed by Basil Brown and Edith Pretty on the eve of World War II. It contained an extraordinary array of treasures and was the subject of the Netflix film The Dig.
So now it's our turn to dig here, and it's fair to say that we've been looking forward to this one for years.
In all my years exploring archaeology, I never ever thought that I would get a chance to be involved with an excavation of Sutton Hoo. That is so exciting. What are we going to do? When do we start?
It's a real privilege as well to be able to work inside the area. Normally you can't get in close to the mounds. For us to come in with the new radar system, the magnetic cart, both in between the mounds and in some cases over the mounds themselves.
The odd thing about Sutton Hoo, the mound cemetery, has always been why is it there when that's not perhaps the best landscape place it could be. We can't look at the one that's under Tranmere House. We can look at this next one, Garden Field area, to find out presumably there was something there beforehand that constrained the choice of site.
Got something on the magnetics in the middle that looks like a small enclosure with pits inside.
Right, okay, so we'll concentrate this corner and move out over to where the ground sort of starts dropping away.
But you say they're sort of circular.
Yeah.
There aren't any sort of elliptical and boat-shaped.
Well, what we need to do is have a look at the results.
Would you say, Martin, the clusters of the rabbit burrows, are they following a sort of ditch?
So they've got the same kind of pattern as on the Royal Burial Ground, in the sense that the ground has been lowered to make the mounds, you see what I mean? And so it does look quite convincing.
Well, we'll see.
Have to see. Yeah, when we get there all together.
But I mean, you're discovering things,
Yeah.
which we only guessed at. Well, I think it's pretty likely that the rabbits they've inherited a mound.
We can uncover a new, tantalising piece of the jigsaw puzzle that we've always known a bit about, but to be able to find something properly and concrete out about it is amazing.
Helen, we've got an awful lot of squiggles here. Is this what we're going to do?
Everything has been put on here, and we've had a scribble on it too, I'm afraid, so it's getting a bit difficult to see.
So we're ground truthing, what we're seeing on here, which is to see whether they really are cremation pits or inhumations or something completely different like that. That's going to be a fantastic example of the community, which built this site.
I love that phrase, ground truthing. We're going to be ground truthing.
And the ground truthing has begun. It's going on right behind us now. And do catch up with the interview that Helen did with Tony yesterday, which kicked all this off. And Helen is here now. Helen, this is a very special site for you, isn't it?
It is really. It's where I did a lot of my growing up. So I first came here as a first-year undergraduate in the summer as my field experience. I signed up for 5 weeks. And then when that came to the end, I went home for a week and missed it so much I came straight back. and this is really where I learnt my troweling and my shoveling. I learnt how to survey. I learnt a lot about finds. I've just done so much here over the years. And then, of course, when it came to the National Trust, I was already by that point going out with the National Trust's regional archaeologist, and we later got married. So it's kind of seamlessly, I was involved with it in the days of the research project, and then I became involved with it when the exhibition was put up by the National Trust. So it's been part of my life since I was 20 years old.
Wow, and you're coming back here now. So going back to your very first few weeks here, what was it that you were actually excavating? Because obviously we're here in the garden field, and where were you?
Well, that first year I was on Mound 2, which is the big reconstructed mound in the Mound Cemetery that everybody thinks is Mound 1 because it's the biggest now, but that's a reconstruction. We built that painstakingly with wheelbarrows and shovels in the Easter, I think it must have been about 1992. Some York students came down in a couple of cars. It was freezing cold, back-breaking work. But that when I was first here in my first year in 1987, we were unpicking Mound 2 very, very carefully, so that because we thought that it might be constructed in a meaningful ritual way. We thought maybe people had brought individual basketfuls of soil or something, and we were hoping to be able to find discrete pieces, turfs or something, communal way of building where everybody had a part. What we actually found was that it was incredibly mixed. So after unpicking Mound 2 very beautifully, we just shuffled off Mound 6 to see what was underneath. And Mound 7, which I was responsible for in the years to come, Mound 7 we didn't remove the mound at all, because we simply emptied the robber trench in it, because we had felt by then that we'd looked under enough mounds to know that there wasn't going to be anything under it apart from a buried soil. There wasn't the kind of horse burials or something that you get under some mounds. Sutton Hoo mounds tend to be just placed on a plough soil.
Right.
Now, I could talk about this forever, because I could go on and say, now plough soil is interesting in itself. Why not build on grassy, on a grassy soil?
Oh, right,
grassy turf.
Yeah.
Why always go on to plough soil? Does that mean that it was ploughed deliberately, especially round and round?
Yeah.
Does it mean that it was not? It was arable land, precious land? You know, every time somebody asks me any question about Sutton Hoo, I can witter on forever.
Well, that's a really good point that you make about the detail that you were going into. We learnt today that we were doing the kind of riddling and the watering, how that was a really careful process that's developed, and now you're saying that you found out that it was plough soil underneath the mounds and not grass. I mean, what was it like working on there with all these really delicate and difficult situations?
Oh, it's incredibly exciting, because every tea break you would be discussing what you found in the couple of hours before and what it could mean, and every Friday we had an immense site tour of everything that had happened, with everybody who was responsible, be they an undergraduate or be they a professor of archaeology, everybody who was responsible for each particular bit, talking the whole team through. And because we were all living in the field as well, in the evenings we'd talk about it. We'd sometimes go up the photographic tower with a glass of wine and say, what do you think that is? And what do you think that is? And could that be the edge of a burial chamber? Or do you think it's just a robber trench? Or what about the Neolithic ditch? Where do you think that went? Why was it so deep? You know, everybody was fascinated and wanted to talk about it all the time. And everything that you were touching, you thought, well, this could be part of the most exciting place, thing, activity ever. So every time you had a piece of burnt flint in your hand, almost, I mean, the most mundane of object, you might think, well, maybe this is part of a burial pyre, a funeral pyre. Maybe it's part of a ritual flaming. Maybe there was the turf was flamed off in a kind of stubble burning kind of thing. Or was it feasting? Or was it some kind of prehistoric ritual sauna? You know, even those tiny little mundane finds, you thought, well, everything that happens here is special. So what is special about this every day?
And how many of you were there? I mean, what was the atmosphere like socially, should we say? Because there were a lot of people here for a very long time living in a field, weren't there?
About 40 of us, yes. And some of us are back here today, and there will be more in a few weeks because we're having a reunion day.
Right.
So that we had a campfire. I've always wanted to excavate the site of that fire to see how much a fire every night for a long time penetrates the soil, you know, a bit of experimental archaeology. So we had a campfire, we sat around it, we did a lot of singing. You know, it was a huge amount of singing, and I suspect that there might be some more singing this time. And there were a lot of international people. We had a team from Italy, we had a team from Poland, we had a team from Czechoslovakia, and they all brought their songs, and they all brought their jokes, and we drove down to the off-licence and had a good time in the evening.
So we're here now thanks to Patreon. All our supporters have made it possible for us to get to Sutton Hoo.
And the really important thing about this is that this research project has been planned for 10 years, but there's never been the money to carry it out. And Patreon's donations, that's what's allowed us to do it now. All of this is being paid for by those small and large donations. If you are a Patreon, you're really making things happen, and we're very grateful to you.